So my friend recently bought a PS2 and was playing Crash Bandicoot Tag Team Racing on it. I used to love this game as a kid, and being the intellectual child that I was, I especially loved the loading screen. You get to make farting and burping noises. But this got me thinking, what was the first fart in video game history? So you better get your history books ready, because today it's time to learn about the history of farts in gaming. Video games are a relatively new creation, so at some point in the last 100 years, there had to be some team of computer science innovator revolutionaries even, who decided to break the boundaries for the first time by including a fart in their game. So I Googled it. Ah, man. I couldn't find the answer to my oddly specific question. I needed an answer. So I decided to take it upon myself and scour the internet to educate myself on what the first fart in video game history really was. This is an educational game from 1971 that introduced players to the hardships of pioneer life. One of the most horrible ailments in the game? Dysentery. I think you know where I'm going with this. While the game never shows farting explicitly, players will often find their characters suffering from dysentery. Given the symptoms, it's safe to assume that farts were implied. I wasn't really satisfied with this implied fart business. And the monkey in my heart is telling me that that is not a fart. That is a wagon and a text bubble. It just feels too vague for me to truly consider it the first fart in gaming history. You could argue that any game with people or animals in it is implying farting just by the mere existence of a creature that can fart. So I don't really count this. All of this said, I still feel like the Oregon Trail is the most heavily implied fart in early gaming history, so I had to include it, but it's definitely not the first fart in gaming history, no. On July 5th, 1987, the original Leisure Suit Larry game came out. Leisure Suit Larry in the Land of the Lounge Lizards. For context, Leisure Suit Larry is a video game series based around crude humor and sex that's actually still making games to this day. In the original game, you're able to walk into a bathroom in this bar and take a dump. Now, we can deduce that if he is taking a dump, he is likely to fart in the process. And the game even has a little pop-up that calls attention to the aroma. And while researching my boy Larry, I actually found out that this game was actually based off of a text adventure game from 1981 called Soft Adventure for Apple II. This game didn't have any visuals, it was just straight up a text adventure, but you could still take a dump in it. So I guess that's the first fart in gaming history.
Yeah, that's not a fart.
What do you mean? What do you mean that's not a fart?
He's taking a shit. He's not farting. It's different, bro.
Ah, shoot. Yeah, you got a point.
Yeah, I know.
After consulting my heart monkey, I feel like it's up to debate whether this is an implied fart or not. I also feel like taking a crap should potentially even be its own classification separate from standard farts. There's never any definitive confirmation that Larry farted though. So due to this, I personally don't think either of these games have the first fart in video game history. And in this point in gaming history, so many games started coming out that I honestly started to feel a bit discouraged when researching for this. But I do think I've finally found the game. The game with what I consider to be the definitive first fart in video game history. Oh, baby, strap in. JJ and Jeff. JJ and Jeff is a 1989 platformer for the TurboGrafx 16. In this game, our main character fights enemies using an aerosol spray can. Only in the original Japanese release, it wasn't an aerosol can. In the original game, Kato and Ken, you actually fight enemies with a fart attack. And it's definitely a fart, clear as day. The fart attack was censored for the Western release, along with a full reskin of all the characters in the game. The original release of this game was November 30th, 1987, which is the earliest depiction of a fart in gaming history that isn't implied, but actually shown, at least as far as I know. Now, you might be wondering at this point, who are Kato and Ken and why do they have a fart attack in their video game? Well, the fart attack actually has more context. Kato and Ken are popular Japanese comedians from back in the day. And believe it or not, they actually opened for the Beatles in 1966. Well, at least Kato did. To sum it all up, Kato was in a rock and roll comedy group called the Drifters during the peak of Beatlemania. The Beatles were about to have their first concert in Japan, in Tokyo, on June 30th, 1966, but the Japanese government would only allow them to play if they had a Japanese act as the opener. The Beatles decided to have the Drifters as one of their opening acts, and the Drifters knew the audience would want them off stage as soon as possible, so they cleverly just performed for about 45 seconds and then left the stage. And the crowd erupted with applause. This launched the Drifters into fame, as well as Kato, who then would go on to start a comedy TV show with Ken. So in short, the first fart in video game history came from a video game version of the first ever opening act to the Beatles in Japan. Weird.